Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenburgh Report with Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning, Westchester. Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor. Pandemic has had a major effect on the U.S. economy. There's a lot of people who are unemployed, and artists especially have had to adapt as work put on hold. A survey by the Americans for the Arts, a nonprofit organization based in Washington, found that 62% unemployed and more than 94% had experienced a loss of income from the pandemic. Today, as my special guest, I have Tal Aviezer, who's artistic director for Red Monkey Theater Group. Thank you, Tal, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Paul. And I just would like to say I'm a Paul Feiner fan from way back, and I appreciate all of the years of service that you've given to the town of Greenburgh and the people of Westchester.
Thank you. Could you maybe just start by just telling us a little bit about the Red Monkey Theater Group?
Sure. Red Monkey Theater Group is currently the theater company in residence at the College of Mount St. Vincent, which is just over the Yonkers border in Riverdale. We were founded in 1999, and we've been active in Westchester, New York City, the surrounding greater New York metro area for 21 years now. We perform at the College of Mount St. Vincent. We also frequently do shows at Lyndhurst Mansion in Tarrytown, at Bartow Pell Mansion Museum, which is in Pelham Bay Park, and at various small venues all around Westchester, Southern Connecticut, and New Jersey. Smaller town hall theaters, libraries, community spaces like that. Often those smaller touring shows are free. And
this summer, how did you?
So we were, obviously it's a unique position for performing arts companies of all shapes and sizes. And I don't purport to have a silver bullet for how we in the arts make our way forward at this time. But we were able to stage an outdoor production on the grounds of Bartow Pell Mansion Museum in Pelham Bay Park on the Pebble Court specifically, directly behind the mansion. It took a lot of careful planning. The audience size was greatly reduced. We had 20 people attend each performance, which is considerably smaller than our usual houses. And we did arrange socially distanced seating for all audience members. So, there were people that came in family groups, and they, of course, could sit together. But otherwise, the audience was sort of clustered by family group or by pod, 6 feet apart outdoors. We did ask the audience to wear masks for the duration of the performance. The staging of the play itself was equally challenging, if not more so. The actors in the performance were not masked, but we did a block, which means staging. We staged the production so that at no point was any actor within 8 feet of any other actor, which included, in some cases, and we didn't want anyone to handle each other's props as well or share furniture with anybody. There was basically no contact at all between the performers, which caused some interesting challenges. In a couple of cases, we had to actually create duplicates of the same prop if it had to be handled by more than one person. And the sort of choreography in theater that you usually see only on stage had to continue backstage as well, because you want to make sure that you're protecting your talent, your artists in offstage spaces. Fortunately, we had pretty much the whole mansion as a dressing room. Usually dressing rooms are like closets for those of you who've ever been in one, and people are all piled on top of each other in there. But you had to choreograph to make sure that people were not coming into contact with each other off stage as well. Usually you could have stage managers set props. Actors had to do that themselves because they're the only ones that can handle them. Usually you have dressers who help with costume changes, makeup artists. Those things were, for safety's sake, we didn't use on this production. So there was a lot of innovation necessary.
Right. We have to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll learn more about the Red Monkey Theater Group and what artists are doing during the pandemic. So please stay on the line, and we'll be back at 10:20. I'm Paul Feiner, Town Supervisor.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. I'm Paul Feiner, and I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor. And my guest today is Tal Aviezer, who's Artistic Director of the Red Monkey Theater. And the theater group has its residency at the College of Mount St. Vincent. Tal, I had another question. Now that the school year has started, and it's totally different, and it's getting a little colder, what plans do you have for your theater group for the fall and winter months?
Yeah, it's a great question. So normally by this time of year, we would have announced a full season of programming stretching through June of 2021. Obviously, the situation is very fluid right now. So we basically are not publicly announcing any programming more than a month or two in advance when we feel fairly confident that we'll be able to deliver it. I am happy to say that just this past week, we did basically receive permission for a few designated members of our company to at least re-access our home theater, which is Cahill Theater at the College of Mount St. Vincent. We have been making some supply runs during the pandemic. For the most part, we've been sort of cannibalizing costumes, especially anything that's 100% cotton. We've been turning those costumes into PPE, masks specifically. But for the fall, we're figuring out ways we probably will be able to use the theater to do some video content. We'll have access to the sound and lighting equipment in there. We guaranteed we will not do any indoor productions for at least the rest of 2020, but we do look forward to maybe trying some small-scale workshops attended by 10 people or less, where we can do them in a no-contact, safe and socially distanced way. We are looking ahead to the spring. We feel like having successfully mounted this outdoor show safely in August, when the weather warms up again, we are looking to do additional outdoor performances, and we have several venues that have expressed interest in having us come and do those. I guess we are monitoring the situation carefully, to see what the pandemic does, what the numbers do in New York. We've been doing a great job. So, for the past few months, as you know, hopefully we can stay the course. But we do not feel it will be safe to do indoor performances for the remainder of this year. I guess is the best answer that I can give on that front. We're looking to do some remote stuff via video, and we're looking to do some workshops, some playwriting workshops, and some acting workshops, we think with a small in-person student attendance. And those will be available. Sorry.
Yeah, my niece works for the Pennsylvania Ballet. She graduated Juilliard and the New England Conservatory of Music, and they hired her last year as a classical pianist, and then everybody got furloughed or laid off during the pandemic. And, a lot of artists like her, just are really struggling. How could people make ends, meet, during this process? And I'm thinking of even like Broadway shows where a lot of there's so much money people put into these shows, and so few people are going to be even able to see it. The theaters are not going to look the same in the future. And how could it be profitable?
Yeah. So there are two halves to this. There is the question of what people in the arts can do, and there's a question of what people who love the arts can do. And I'll address the second part first, which is that if artistic organizations are important to you, if performing arts matters to you, if visual arts matters, if music, if being able to attend live concerts matters to you, and you have the means to do so, all arts organizations are asking for help right now to try to weather this storm. Some of them will be there on the other side of this, and some won't. And the ones, I would say, especially the local ones, the ones in your community, the ones that mean something to you personally, if you have the means to do it, please support them, please donate, and please help them during this. And please take advantage of whatever programming they are offering. Because if we do not help sustain the arts organization during this pandemic, these organizations will not be there for us, will not be able to reopen when this passes and it becomes safer to attend their offerings. A lot of arts workers were deemed non-essential, meaning that the risk is too high for these sorts of activities, which I agree with. But of course, the arts are essential. I mean, for those of us who have been stuck at home for months, we're consuming via the internet, via television, the back catalog of all of these wonderful artists, right? And I don't think that there's anybody who would make an argument that the availability of art during this crisis is not totally essential to our collective mental health, our collective emotional health, our ability to empathize, our ability to help each other. So that necessity hasn't changed, right? The arts are very much essential in that respect. They're essential to our humanity. So if you can help, please do. Now, for those of us who are in the arts...
I just wanted to mention one.
Yeah.
Even if people are not that much into the arts, which would be unfortunate, people should recognize that the arts also have an impact on the local economy. So if there's a theater, group in a neighborhood, and when people are going to see the theater, they're eating at restaurants, they're shopping at local businesses. So losing the venue of a theater also hurts the local economy in many other ways.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Cultural institutions are huge economic drivers. I think that city and state officials in New York often recognize this, and we're very happy about that. And they know, they understand the importance of these things, but it is true. And I think, business owners that have arts organizations, have theaters, have galleries, have museums in their communities will readily attest to the positive economic impact that all of those arts places have.
We'll take another break with Tal Aviezer of the Red Monkey Theater Group. I'm Paul Funk.
1460 WVOX. Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, this is Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and my guest is Tal Aviezer, Artistic Director of the Red Monkey Theater Group, which is based at Mount St. Vincent. As P.T. Barnum famously said once, the show must go on. And theaters are closed from Broadways to local community playhouses. Now, some artists have turned to digital or virtual platforms. And the question is, how can live performances still exist in a time of social, distancing? How could it be profitable for theaters to survive if so fewer people are going to actually be watching the shows?
Yeah, so before the break, we talked a little bit about what people could do to support performing arts during this. Coming at it from the perspective of a producer of performing arts, I do not have all the answers, but I will say that, with the pandemic numbers the way they are, at the level they are right now, I do believe it is possible to safely and responsibly produce small-scale outdoor performances. And Red Monkey Theater Group did manage to profitably do that in August with Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Copper Beeches at Bartow Pell Mansion Museum. So what does that mean? If you cannot have as many people attending an individual performance, if possible, do more performances than you might have originally planned to allow the same amount of people to attend, just at different dates and times. Outdoors, I think, can be done safely and responsibly. I'm not prepared to say we're at a point where we can do that indoors yet. The P.T. Barnum show must go on line. I think part of it is that's hard for actors, for performers is grappling with the reality that during a pandemic, the show need not necessarily go on. So normally, I will say as an actor myself, I've certainly performed, with high fevers, with injuries, under, challenging conditions, because that's what I was trained to do. And that has sort of been the pervasive ethos in theater and the performing arts. During the duration of the pandemic, this is over. This mentality really has to change. If you have people in your company who are unwell, they should not be expected to perform or report to work. It's not worth, risking somebody's health to do this. And furthermore, in the long run, it will really hurt us as an industry if we don't make that psychological shift. If your venue or your show becomes the center of an outbreak, you will damage the entire industry. You will hurt a lot of people that did do things safely and correctly, because you will be contributing to fear and to putting people in danger. So these things have to be considered very seriously and planned, to proceed appropriately. Now, solo performances, obviously safer than group performances. Small casts, safer than large casts. As far as digital performances go, it's really tricky. I mean, I think you have to put the experience of your audience front and center. I see a lot of interesting material that is being developed for that medium, plays that are being developed to be performed specifically on Zoom. I have seen a few good ones. I do think that's great. I think that a theater company that's just sort of throwing up a play on Zoom or, on some other live feed without really adapting the material at all to make it work in that medium, I sort of think it's television but worse. I think there's a benefit to that, maybe just keeping your talent sharp, giving your actors something to do, but it's not something that I'd feel comfortable putting in front of an audience. I'd rather stick to trying to do safe stuff outside or trying to develop digital content that is developed specifically for digital content, that isn't just sort of trying to shove a live show into a digital format. I think that's more problematic.
Yeah, I've been trying unsuccessfully so far to have like find a drive-in location, not only drive-in theater, let's say drive-in movies, but maybe drive-in theater. Is that something that possibly?
Yeah, I think that could work very. I think that could work very well. I know that is something that has been pulled off successfully in Europe. Drive-in theater. I know there is I live in Hastings on Hudson. There is a coffee shop here, Goodwich, that has been pulling off small-scale drive-in movie theater throughout the summer. pretty successfully. It's quite safe and enjoyable. I absolutely think that drive-in theater, drive-in concerts, drive-in dance performances, I think, is something that probably would work particularly well because, it's music and visuals for the most part. You don't usually even have to worry about miking dancers. You just got a music feed that could come in through car radios or through other speakers, and then you're watching a visual performance. So I think dance shows, to me, seem very doable as a drive-in experience.
And ultimately, I've written to the colleges, I've written to office park landlords, and so far I've had zero success in locating anyone willing to rent out, space. And why do you think it's so hard?
I think people are concerned about liability. I think people just look at that and say, I'm not sure how the litigation is going to be on this. If this does end up resulting in some kind of cluster or an outbreak, even though intellectually I know the odds of that happening are very low, what is the risk to me as a business owner, as a school, to have that happen? I'm really just trying to protect my core business, or I'm just trying to, protect the core function of my school, which is to teach kids to get classes going. So I think some of them may be unwilling to assume risks for that. I think, there are organizations, nonprofit cultural organizations that have their own sites that I think, like other cultural institutions, are, they really need programming now to reinvigorate them. So I think those are the sorts of spaces that are more likely to be open to having some sort of safe, scaled-down performances happen on site. I know Carramore Center for the Arts did some outdoor performances with limited ticketed live attendance this summer. So I think places like that, and then towns and municipalities that are willing to partner with an arts organization and maybe give them some park space to do outdoor performances. I think that's probably more likely. But I don't know. There are a lot of landlords that have been very accommodating to certain arts organizations in terms of rents, just to sort of allow them to keep the lights on during this. But that is definitely a decision that landlords and schools would have to make for themselves.
Right.
I do know we do have.
Have you sort of approached the college where you're located, asking if you could use their parking spots?
So the College of Mount St. Vincent, they've been really wonderful with us throughout this whole ordeal. I actually didn't even have to approach them. They, a couple of weeks ago, came to us and made it clear to us that we would be welcome to do some outdoor performances on campus. So we'll be working to develop that for the spring.
We have to take one final break, and we'll be right back. I'm Paul Feiner with the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we're talking with Tal Aviezer, Artistic Director of the Red Monkey Theater Group, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm Paul Feiner.
Now, back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, Paul Feiner, Supervisor, and my guest is Tal Aviezer, Artistic Director of Red Monkey Theater Group. Tal, could you tell us the website is for your theater group?
Absolutely. It is www.redmonkeytheater.org, and you can check out all of our upcoming programming there as it rolls out. We do have a small show at Bartow Pell Mansion Museum this weekend. It is sold out, but we are planning some additional programming for October. We normally do a big Sherlock Holmes show at Lyndhurst Mansion in November and December. That is unlikely to happen this year, but stay tuned. Maybe we can adapt it in some form. And that information will be available at www.redmonkeytheater.org.
How many actors and actresses do you have as part of your theater group, and how do you find the artists?
So we have a core group of actors and writers and designers and directors and producers that is about a dozen people. In a given year, we will probably work with an estimated 60 or so different artists. We, do some casting based on an existing pool of people we trust and work with them in repertory, but it's always important to bring in new talents, particularly younger people that are just coming out of drama school and looking for work. We have some amazing young talent every season. So we do open auditions, usually twice per season, once in the fall and once in the spring. And those will be listed on our website, on our social media, Red Monkey Theater Group. And we'll take ads in all of the usual trade papers and things like that backstage. You'll be able to find our casting calls in all of the usual places where you can find casting calls. I will say that the pandemic in particular is very hard on those younger actors that, are just coming out of school and just trying to start out and coming to New York to try to do shows. And we would love to be there for them. We often, are some of the first paying jobs that they can get. But for a lot of those kids, they have not really been able to stay in New York during this. A lot of them have been forced to, go back home to stay with their parents or their folks, or to make whatever arrangements that they can, because there's really no way for them to pay their rent, to stay here to try to get a start in the arts. So that is another part of the recovery. Is the talent pool of artists that this area is famous for. We will need to find ways to welcome them back when we can produce programming, when we can give them work.
Right. Do you see this pandemic just being a temporary setback? Do you think once the pandemic is over, we're going to have lost, a lot of the art?
If you're referring to the sort of, the New York is dead op-eds that, famously have been popping up recently, no, I do not believe that a permanent or mortal wound has been inflicted on the arts in this area. At the same time, I do not think the recovery will be instantaneous or rapid. I do not think that we will have a vaccine immediately and within a couple of months, everything will just come back. It will be a long and difficult road back from this. Some new arts organizations will have to spring up where other ones will not have been able to survive this. But ultimately, in the long run, are we in danger of losing the arts, losing performing arts in the New York area? Not at all. It's a trauma. Our society, our communities, the arts have endured many traumas before. This is a very serious one. Of course, we will recover. The speed and efficacy with which we can recover will require a communal effort, both on the part of those of us who are in the arts and those of us who love the arts and recognize the important role that arts organizations will have to play in the cultural recovery, in the economic recovery in the wake of this pandemic. But are the arts doomed? No, of course not. Of course they'll be back.
But what would you recommend a recent graduate, do? They graduated theater, ballet, music. There's no work, and yet this is their passion. How could they use this pause period to further themselves?
I would say, first of all, do not feel that. I think it's very easy for artists who suddenly are underemployed but have a lot of time on their hands to think, oh, this is a moment where I should be creating great art. I'm squandering this. Do what you need to do to survive, to take care of your mental health. If you do not come out the other end of this pandemic experience, having written the great American novel or composed the next amazing piece of music, I think that is okay. This is not necessarily an environment which is conducive to prodigious amount of creative activity. So do what you need to do to survive and protect yourself. I'm taking interns. You can email info@redmonkeytheater.org. I will do what I can to help you out and advise you. I'm sure that is true for many of our other local arts organizations. Do not necessarily have every answer for you, but as we all try to pivot and adapt and take a holistic approach, whether it's how can we take stuff that used to be inside and put it outside? How can we take stuff that used to be live and make it digital? Who do we need to reach out to make drive-in arts experiences happen? Is it just that we haven't contacted the right person who might actually be interested in doing this? There's people that are needed to do that work. It's never an easy life for an artist, and of course, this is particularly difficult. And I do not have an easy answer to that question. But continue to reach out to other artists whom you respect, other organizations that you admire and want to be a part of. They may need you. They may be able to use you. If you can create something on your own terms, definitely do it. But, the first priority is to stay mentally and physically healthy. If you don't have that, you're not going to be making any art. So if this is, if the next 7 to 9 months are about survival, then they are about survival. Life is long. We will recover from this. There will be more artistic opportunities for you in the future. I'm sorry that you're coming out of school in the middle of this catastrophic situation. But this is not forever, right? Life is about change. This is really dramatic and unexpected, but people will still want stories. People will still need empathy. People will still need art to teach them about themselves and each other and to build communities. None of that is going to change. Some of that is on pause right now. Bear with us, while we get through it together.
That's great. We are running out of time, and I just want to thank you and remind our listeners that they could learn more about the Red Monkey Theater.
Thank you very much, Paul.